Welcome to this edition of EdUp Insights, Insights from the Field. For those of you who watched our first Insight from the Field, we had committed to being very focused on the key learnings that we're gaining at Husch Blackwell Consulting from our clients, partners, and relationships in the field. We learn something every day, Therese, and that's pretty important. And we want to share it with you.
Yep.
And as you know, EdUp Insights and Insights from the Field is available on all streaming platforms. It's available on YouTube. Our only ask is that you like, subscribe, or direct message us about the issues, tools, and perhaps even people that you'd like to hear from in regards to how do we take strategies and apply it to act in this environment where action is so important. So, again, we're glad that you're joining us. And today, perhaps something that's foundational to our work is what is an academic portfolio? Why is it important? And why do we believe that it should not only be an assessment tool, but a management tool to drive your institution forward? So, Teresa, let's start there. Let's get to the basics, right?
Yeah.
We talk about, we call it the academic performance and program viability tool, the portfolio. But in its most basic terms, what is it? What's a portfolio?
Well, so when I first started working with you, Chuck, and you kept on talking about this academic portfolio, I'm like, what is he talking about? Like, is he talking about, are we looking at what we have as an academic portfolio and trying to add, subtract to it? Well, it's way bigger than that. It is really looking at unit-based costs. And I think, at its simplest form, but it leads to many other kinds of pieces of information and things you need to start thinking about. But, with this work, we help institutions look at what are we doing right? What are we doing that might need a little adjustment? And what could we be doing differently? And what should we add? It's not all about subtracting. It is not about reducing. It is about doing what you do really well.
So we're going to be very specific and we're going to share screen for a minute. This is not a demo, but it is something visually to show you on some of the elements. Again, we're not going to drive all the way through this portfolio model, uh, but Teresa, in terms of what's on the screen, um, just give a basic description of the inputs that go in. And let's be clear, this is not an Excel sheet that's 14 feet long.
No, no.
This is a user interface
Mhm.
that makes it very easy to use. But as I'm looking at this screen, macro to micro, what's available to us?
Well, what is available is every piece of data that you would want to know about your faculty productivity and your academic productivity. Um, from, you know, uh, every class a faculty member teaches, how many students they're teaching, whether or not that they're making the departments, the colleges, individual faculty members are covering the costs of teaching those students, which is really important because that's where we get stuck, I think, because it's always been that way in our institutions. We look at everything from contribution margins to net tuition, the tuition discounts, fees, and what it costs ultimately to produce a degree.
And uh, something that we have not only learned from clients, but also experienced, we can do this unit-based assessment on outcomes that institutions think is most important, like student success. Talk about that, not just the net value on a financial,
Mhm.
but outcome-based metrics.
Well, I mean, that's what we do, right? We teach students. And how do we make sure that we're doing it in the most effective and efficient way? And sometimes it's looking at, are we doing things to make students successful? And where are the bottlenecks that, whether it's a specific department, a specific college, a specific faculty member that are getting in the way of students being successful? Because if we can keep the students that we have, it's a lot cheaper than recruiting new students, right? And getting them, ultimately, we want to recruit students and get them to the finish line so that they go out and be productive citizens of this country or the world. And this helps to look at whether or not we're doing the right thing by our students.
So as we look at this page,
Mhm.
scenario planning, what if, right?
Yep.
What if we identified signature programs that we're known for, and then how do those programs drive the allocation to those that we care perhaps most about, but may not be as financially productive? Talk a little bit about the value of scenario planning.
Scenario planning helps an institution really look at what they're doing right and what needs attention. And that's from the unit-based cost, the faculty productivity, the financial pieces of it, and the student success piece of it. And you can play with different parameters here to see if you did X, what impact is that going to have on the rest of the institution or that college department or faculty member?
Which
Uh,
pulls all the way through, right, Therese? If you're going to
all.
attribute your overhead costs down to an instructional line,
Mhm.
you can put your actual overhead in,
Yep.
or you can zero that out and only look at the cost of instruction, correct?
Absolutely. And, you know, in most cases with our clients, they really haven't thought at the level of allocating overhead to down to the faculty line, right? But if our job is to educate students, everything that we do supports that, right? And so that has to be allocated to the colleges, the departments, the faculty lines, to be able to understand what our costs are.
And then there's a practical side to this, right? If you and I wanted to spend the weekend coming up with multiple scenarios, we could save those.
Oh, absolutely. Yep.
Or the critical interface is between your chief academic officer, your chief financial officer, and actually using this as a management tool to allocate resources on a daily or weekly basis.
Absolutely, especially as everybody's going into budgeting season, right? You kind of need this kind of data in order to be able to make the decisions. You know, in our region, is accounting important or is nursing important or is, English majors important? That this helps you decide where you should be putting your resources.
So let's go not only to the deliverables, right? Why a portfolio, but to somewhat of the ROI for the effort. The first, and we lift this up very intently, answers that critical question I've been asked as a president. Boards ask all the time. I've asked as a president, but frame, right, the importance of being able to say what it actually costs to deliver a degree.
Well, I think that's crucial to the health of the organization. Now, that doesn't mean that if a degree doesn't create enough revenue to cover itself that it's not mission critical. We're not saying that in any way, shape, or form. But at least you know that if you're a religious institution and you have religious studies and it's a loss to the institution, but it's crucial to who you are, you at least know then that has to be balanced by something else. Whether it's something in the region that you need, something the country needs, like healthcare, right? That's an easy one to pick on because everybody needs more healthcare professionals across the country. So, do you boost up your healthcare or majors so that and degrees so that you can cover the religious studies? So it's a balancing act, and it's about who do you want to be as an institution, and we help you understand the data so that you can make those informed decisions.
Understand the data, but first find the data and make sure it's usable. And so let's get very sequenced on this. And then again, on the value of this process. And we've had clients and campus and leaders say that if nothing else, um, multiple points of data, we've got too much data, but making it usable. So, how do we build one with you?
So it feels so the data piece is crucial to this process, right? Because it's based on data, not emotion, not feelings. And so we work with the teams on the campuses to make sure that we have the right data from student level data to faculty level data to institution-wide data so that we give a complete picture of all the elements that goes into how the institutions runs from a productivity and student success and financial perspective. Um, I would say that data is an issue on every single campus. It is not the bigs, the smalls, the mediums. It is across the board, and it varies by institution. But when we start going in and saying, "Well, do you have this kind of data?" and they're like, "Well, we do. It's on a spreadsheet. It's not in their student information system." And so there is not an institution we've talked with, or worked with that doesn't have some sort of issue with data. And we help them then realize it and fix it. Well, we don't fix it, they fix it, but we help identify that that's an issue.
So we've got the data, we're doing that, we're using that. And then when we get into the process of actually building the portfolio, we find that either there's gaps or the data is not valid.
Hmm.
And we do have some pretty powerful resources that assist us to, if
Yep.
nothing else, clean your data.
Absolutely. And every single client we worked with has said, "Oh my gosh, we didn't know this," and thank you, right? Because it ultimately helps them tell their story better, helps them run their organization better, and understand what they should be doing differently.
And this comes embedded with strategy support. And I've seen this happen. I'm going to commend both our clients, but you, Therese, because as we listen and then we gather, in most cases, we've found savings that far exceed the cost of the exercise
Oh
uh,
yeah.
by simply going into the design phase with a working group or team on a campus. Describe key, I'm not just going to say learnings, but key savings.
Uh, there's been, where do I start? I mean, because every institution has their own set of things that we've helped them uncover. Uh, there is everything from class sizes are too small to too many courses that have less than 8 students in them, or whatever your parameter is for a less than 8 students, to compensating faculty in not equally across how
Overloads, release time,
stipends, or
supplemental contracts.
yes, or even in this department, a faculty member gets workload credit or overload for this kind of work, and in this department they don't. And that creates not only potentially a legal issue for compensation, but it creates a sense on campus that this group is better than this group, and that we help stop some of that. But to your point about helping with savings, I mean, uh, there's one client that we've worked with not that long ago, and I looked at some of their just their general ledger data and their faculty and staff data. I'm like, you're spending almost $2 million on this kind of employee, and they're like, no, because it's dispersed, right? And so they've never looked at a classification of an employee in that way, and they're like, oh, well, we need to think about how we handle that. And that's part of the process, but it's not even getting to the academic portfolio part of it. It's part of the administrative efficiency part of it.
So there's accountability metrics that have been proposed coming at us. They've been in budget bills from the federal government.
Yep.
Uh, there is an opportunity, and I think this is the critical element. We're just going to be very direct with our listeners. This is only as good as what you're trying to create, the North Star, the size and shape of your institution, but aligning outcome metrics to community-based needs, workforce needs,
Mhm.
student success metrics. And I have to say, Therese, with a provost who has a very intense focus on student success, looks at their persistent data, not just measuring the financial impact, but really interested in persistence rates down to the instructional line, just to improve people's awareness.
Yep.
Are we gatekeepers or are we gate openers, right, for students? That these tools are only as good as the questions and kind of missional alignment for the things that you believe are most important.
Right. And so we work really closely with the presidents and their senior teams on what do you want to accomplish? What do you want your institution to be not just in the next 6 months or the next year, but 3 or 4 years down the road. What is your strategy? Where do you want to be? Who do you want to serve? And we help them with the data to be able to understand that. First of all, who sometimes people think that they're serving a certain population, and then you're like, well, but you also have these populations over here that you are probably much more accessible in today's market, like a non-traditional learner. Which is becoming more of the traditional learner, anybody over the age of 24, right? They have pockets of that, but they don't focus on it. So we help them understand, is that part of your mission? Is that part of who you want to be in the future? And helping them. But we can give them information, we can give them guidance, but ultimately it's up to the institution from the president and the senior leadership to the board to decide who do we want to be as we grow up.
So, my journey's included partnerships with some of the best strategic finance folks out there who understand, the value, especially like yourself with a financial background on unit-based cost.
Yep.
Um, why are these not utilized? Um, I'm going to be as audacious to say by all institutions, but there are reasons that we have discovered
Mhm.
and feel very passionate about why the use of portfolios aren't more prevalent today.
Well, nobody likes pulling up the rug and seeing what's swept underneath it, right? Like everything or what's been kicked down the can down the road. I mean, it's core to who we are and what we do in higher ed is education, is teaching, right? And so how do you not look at the unit-based cost, but nobody really wants to because it's the tough thing to do because you have tenure, you have faculty contracts, you have all of this stuff. Well, those are excuses as far as I'm concerned. Sorry. But those are excuses to not wanting to do the tough work of saying X, Y, Z faculty members, you're not holding your own load, really.
Well, and as we engage weekly and confess daily
Hmm.
that we have kicked these cans from an enterprise down the road, and now we're out of cans. And
Oh, yeah.
so, let's articulate very specifically. If you ask and then you have to act.
Right.
So a portfolio does require a degree of transparency, and in transparency today within the academy is a choice. And once you make it, the second is on the basis of cost.
Hmm.
And we understand that, but you cannot let that preclude you from having kind of the vital tools and our commitment at Hush Blackwell and Hush Blackwell Consulting is to put supports and services into people's hands that they can afford. So,
Right.
um, and a user interface. Therese, talk a little bit about the fact that this isn't an Excel sheet.
So I'm a digit head and love spreadsheets, but when we started doing this work and it started out as a spreadsheet, I said, time out. We can't expect a non-digit head like me to be able to go in and use this data in a way that is going to be helpful or informative or help them tell the story of how things have to morph and change on their campus. And so we just started down this path of creating a tool that they can actually integrate into their campus, into their budgeting, into their planning, so that they can actually understand why they're doing what they're doing. It helps them budget differently. It helps them make decisions. And, the one thing that I know I've heard, and I'm sure you've heard, faculty in particular, but staff, I mean, so it's not, just picking on one group, but we're always making emotional decisions as senior leaders or presidents, right? We don't know what it's like. Well, data is very telling. And if you as a faculty member are doing, you're not even teaching 8 students every, course or not. How many times have we seen they're teaching, 30 students all year long? Well, that's sweet, right? But that's not necessarily beneficial to the institution or to the students, frankly. And so we're not making emotional decisions with this. We're using data to say things have to change.
Well, and institutions have done more with less better on the administrative, the operating. Instruction literally is the last real efficiency in regards. But we paralyze, right, for fear.
Oh,
Uh,
absolutely.
and let's let me put this in context of one, we really advocate for you to consider building out a portfolio that gives you the opportunity to allocate resources differently. I've used it in three different types of institutions. I want to give credit to Tracy Espy, who's the president of Mitchell College, who was provost at Pfeiffer University, built a portfolio before we ever talked about them. But she had a very quantitative as well as qualitative eye for um, running an academic program and build it. And I always said the most powerful day, Therese, on a college campus was having valid and reliable data and simply pushing send, not necessarily making decisions, but just so, right, you know where you fit into
Yep.
the overall productivity. Roll forward to the University of Central Missouri, we had resources and we utilized it to allocate those to the things we wanted to be known for.
Mhm.
Just like you said, an investment strategy to make the most of our resources so that we could carry all the opportunities that we believed were available. And then with partners in Arkansas, actually utilizing a portfolio to affect a financial exigency.
Mhm.
Uh, Not the exercise that we would really lift up. And again, would probably say the portfolio is meant to keep you as far away from that as possible.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, nobody wants to do an exigency. Nobody wants to close an institution. That's not what we're here for, right? Not us, but in the field of higher education, we want to educate as many people as we can because we know that's a differentiator in being a productive citizen for this country and this world. And so if we can help institutions before they get down to that path of exigency or closure, that's what you and I thrive for, right? We want to be able to help our colleagues have really robust, growing, thriving institutions.
And what we've learned from the field, and that's the purpose of this conversation, uh, is that it answers the question all campuses should know. How much does it cost to produce a degree?
Yep.
We also know that we're at a abundance of data, but it's not all usable.
Mhm.
And the goal is making it not only useful, but relevant. It's a
Absolutely.
great teaching tool, right?
Mhm.
Um, but it is also critical, right, for the overall allocation of resources and financial viability.
Yep.
Um, and at the end, Therese, we know, right, the process is probably as important as the deliverable.
Well, actually, it's more important because it's so informative to everyone on the campus of really what's going on. Um, but I will say, you have to have a president, a senior team, and a board that is courageous and
Courage is
wants
a choice, just like transparency is.
right. And it takes a lot of courage to be transparent. I mean, you and I have both lived it. And it's not always easy. You take lots of, arrows and all that good stuff, but it's based on data. It's not you and I just sitting around saying, you know what, we don't like the English department. We're going to cut two faculty from it. No, it's based on how many students do we have, how many credit hours do we need to generate, and this is what we really need in order to make that happen.
And maybe
Now,
the hardest challenge, right? How much are they willing to pay, right? I mean, is the element of the value proposition.
yep.
Well, we're going to continue giving you insights. Some of them will get even more micro than we share today about certain elements of building portfolios. And Stay tuned, engage. And if you want to talk about any of these issues with us individually, we're always open to those discussions. Therese, thanks for this insight from the field.
Yeah, thanks, Chuck.